103.2 Preston FM.
Your community.
Your radio.
And right now, nice to welcome my third guest on the show this morning. And Nikki Hesford became infuriated by failing in the clothes industry even. She decided to set up a business, creating the designs she was looking for, and Made in Preston was born. So, Nikki, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Lovely to meet you. Tell us a little about, in the week when Headon and Quarmby, 79-year-old family-run lingerie manufacturer behind Murray Portis's Kinky Knickers lingerie range, just called in administrators. How tough is it out there? And tell us about Made in Preston.
Yeah, well, we're a small factory down on Eldon Street in Preston, and we produce lingerie and clothing, which is fast fashion for women with big boobs. And we employ 12 people, but we opened our doors about a year ago. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is acquiring the staff and skilled machinists and getting the training and the skills in the workforce to be able to grow and sort of reach full capacity, which I think may have been some of the problems that Headon and Quarmby have faced. It takes a long time to train up a machinist, and it's an industry where there is quite a high turnover of staff. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, there would have been thousands of trained, skilled machinists, and we have absolutely no idea where they all are now. I believe that they'll get a lot of them working in supermarkets, Tesco, booths, rather than going to the job centre looking for these people. I've been told that I'm better off putting up a sign in Tesco or booths, because
is that right?
Yeah, a lot of them will have retired, but there are a lot of people in Preston who would have been a machinist 20, 30 years ago, and because of the lack of jobs have had a complete change of job, and if those people are out there and would like to get back into it, we urge them to contact us.
Yeah, because you're right. In the 60s, 50s, 60s, whatever, particularly the northwest of England, there were machinists living on every street.
Yeah, and in particular, Preston used to have, the Bentwoods was quite a well-known organisation that had a lot of sewing machinists. There was ballet up in Burnley, and there's some quite, really quite well-known factories in and around the Preston area. But it took a massive decline when things went out to China, and we were no exception. We started our company in 2008, manufacturing in China, and brought all our manufacturing back to the UK last year due to high costs and very long lead times and poor quality. You just can't get in China what you can get in the UK. Wow,
so you reversed the story because you actually were sourcing from China.
Yeah, we were known as Misfit UK, as some people may remember. We did a rebrand, was on Dragon's Den last year before that, and rebranded everything to Made in Preston, brought everything back to the UK. Our concept is still the same, we still do the same kind of products, but we wanted to bring manufacturing back, rebrand it, and make Preston the flagship for what we do.
And that is what you're doing now, and
yes.
The view and the vision for the future.
Yeah, we got our factory keys just over a year ago. The first staff started coming in sort of January 2013. Started off with just a handful, and less than a year later we now employ 12 people, so it's growing quite quickly.
And I take it that, again, the other thing is that within education these days there's no kind of training or discussion about machinists or about kind of directing young people into that kind of employment.
Yeah, I don't know obviously what the curriculum involves these days, but I'm only 28, and when I was doing my GCSE sort of 12 years ago, very few people took textiles as one of their options, and I don't remember anybody being offered a textile career afterwards, or it being suggested. It was just completely off the radar in terms of possibilities.
And is that right? Did you get quite infuriated by failing in the clothes industry? Is that what, have you always had an interest in fashion and in clothes?
No, actually, I was a glamour model, as some people know, before
yes.
I went into business. I started the business after I finished university when I was 21, and it was purely from finding a gap in the market. I kind of stumbled across textiles by chance as I was going for interviews for regular graduate jobs, and finding that none of the clothing would fit as an ample bosomed young girl. I couldn't find anything at all. The buttons were popping off. I thought, this is ridiculous. Loads of girls have big boobs now, either naturally or unnaturally, and there's just nothing out there other than one brand which was aimed at a much older demographic. At the time I was 21 and the price points were a bit high and the styles weren't really to my taste. And I just thought, this is daft that there's nothing out there for young girls who have big boobs in terms of clothing, dresses, tops, shirts or lingerie. And that's where it started, and it grew from there.
And I mean, you also took the big risk of starting out in business at a very difficult time economically in this country. So what was the response initially when you went along to banks, etc., seeking finance?
When I went along to banks, there's plenty of funny stories with that. It wasn't so much the economy at the time, but more of the fact being a young 21-year-old girl going in with no prior business experience. The bank manager would say, so, what do you know about this? What do you know about clothing and things for what you're doing? And I said, well, I only know two things, and that's my left boob and my right boob, and that's all I know about it. And they didn't take that too kindly. It wasn't really taken very seriously at first. I think people thought it was a lifestyle business, that it was just enough to support me from a kitchen table in the back room, and it was never going to be a high growth enterprise. Funnily enough, all those banks keep getting in touch with me now, asking if I would like to move my banking over to them sort of 5 years later, of which I remind them that they wouldn't have given me the time of day 5 or 6 years ago. Yes. So that's quite interesting. Yes. But no, it was a difficult time in terms of the economy. But I do believe that if you can get through business in these times, when things start to grow and things get better, it kind of separated the wheat from the chaff a little bit, and the businesses that were failing anyway have gone under. It's made companies have to be leaner, cut the costs a lot more, work in a far more efficient and enterprising way. And actually, I think it's not necessarily been a bad thing for companies to have to, kind of think outside the box a little bit and be a bit more innovative.
And what is the market like these days for the products that you sell?
Well, we kind of joined the UK manufacturing at the very beginning of this new trend, but over the last 6 months in particular, we found a massive appetite for UK made garments. I must receive 5, 6, 7, 8 emails a week from people wanting to set up a UK brand, or from buyers of high street asking if we wholesale, because they're looking for UK made products, which we don't. We only sell directly to the consumer online, and we only manufacture our own products in our factory. But over the last few months, there's just been, there's been a lot of TV shows. It was on the Tonight Show last week about UK manufacturing.
That's right. Yes.
Heedon and Quarmby and the Kinky Knickers TV show. Yeah. There's a lot of interest over that, and I think people are kind of realising that our own economy isn't fantastic at the moment. Why are we putting millions of pounds to send over to China for manufacturing when we've got all these unemployed people in our own country, empty premises, machines that are gathering dust from 1965? Bring it back to the UK and put money in our own economy and jobs. Yeah.
And so you set up the factory when then, Nikki?
We got the keys November 2012, but we really kind of got started about pretty much almost a year to the day. The new rebranded site went live June, and we're kind of going into our second proper full season now with spring-summer 2014.
And at the moment, the staff that you have?
We've got some great staff. We're always looking out though, particularly for lingerie machinists. We get a lot of CVs from outerwear clothing machinists. But
what is the difference for a lay person and a male? What is the difference?
The types of machines. So we get a lot of CVs from people who are very au fait with using overlockers and lock stitches. They're pretty generic industrial machines, but to be competent in lingerie, there's extra machines like twin needles, we'll use buttonholes sometimes, zigzags, so the different machines that people may not have used before. Sometimes people who have done bridal wear or costume making can sometimes have the skills, but generally speaking, lingerie, the tiny pieces that go together, and there's very little space for mistakes in lingerie. The seam allowance is only a couple of millimetres, whereas in clothing you've got maybe a centimetre margin for error, so they have to be extremely precise and be able to read the patterns and the notches, which is quite a sort of high level skill. And
the machinists then that you presently have, are these people that were previously machinists, or they've done the training and then they've joined you recently?
Yeah, we've got a few that we've trained up ourselves, and then we've also got 2 who have been lingerie machinists in the past who, although they're a bit rusty, haven't done it for 8, 9, 10 years, but they've, it's like riding a bike. Once they've come in and made a couple, it's, come straight back to them. And we are finding that as our profile raises, people are getting in touch with us and saying, I used to be a lingerie machinist 10 years ago. I've been doing something else in that meantime, but I'm really keen to get back into it. Do you have any jobs? And it's just finding those people. Right. I'm sure there's loads of them around Preston.
Yes. It does sound a little like the Mary Porter story of where they opened a factory that was on TV last year. They opened a factory and brought people into that factory. Has Mary Porter's been good for the manufacturing in this country, you think, of fashion?
It's been very good in raising the profile of UK manufacturing. Obviously the TV show was trending on Twitter at the time, and everybody knows about Kinky Knickers. Everyone's heard about it. I think the shame for Headon and Quarmby, though, is that Mary Porter's had very little direct involvement after the cameras stopped rolling, which meant leaving them to their own devices. The problem with that was that Kinky Knickers didn't have enough orders to Headon and Quarmby to keep them afloat. So they had to then go elsewhere to top up and subsidise their capacity each week or each month, which meant that they had to go to the high street separately. So they were doing a lot of generating sales themselves. But in terms of, making it, putting it on the map and making people talk about it, Mary Porter's has been absolutely fantastic for it. And I just hope that the TV shows and documentaries continue to focus on UK manufacturing.
So, Nikki, where can people go to find out more about the jobs that you've got, and also to find out about you and your company?
Yeah, well, we can go to madeinpreston.com, and if they go to their About Us page, there's information about me and about the company. There's also a contact page if they want to get in touch, or if they want to email us direct. The email address is support@madeinpreston.com if anybody wants to put their CV forward.
Brilliant. Nikki, thank you for coming in this morning.
Problem.
It's been lovely meeting you. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed today's interview, why not tweet Huey at ChatCityPFM?